Okay. Well, so thanks again for doing this with us. We really appreciate it. So let's start with having you in just a few sentences, and again, thinking of that general audience, if you can sort of tell them your name and then tell them about your involvement with today's AI.
Absolutely. Hi, my name is Manu Chopra, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Karya. Karya is a tech non-profit that uses AI to move people in rural India on a pathway out of poverty. The word Karya is Sanskrit for work that gives you a sense of dignity. And the question we ask is, can today's AI create new pathways out of poverty for people in rural India, for people in the global south, for people all over the world? How do we make sure that these communities don't just build the future of AI, but they're also served equally by the future of AI? And that's the work we work on.
That's great. Perfect. Um, so my next question that I'd like you to again, just in as succinctly as you can, sort of tell the visitors about how you personally became interested in chatbots, large language models, and this kind of work.
Absolutely. So, for us, the biggest question is always how do we make sure the cutting edge technology that is being worked upon here in Silicon Valley benefits everyone equally, right? And when we first started seeing chatbots come up, AI come up, my immediate thought process was how do we make sure the benefits of AI are democratically distributed to people everywhere? I studied AI at Stanford, and that obviously was a great start. I became deeply obsessed with AI research. For a long period, my homepage was archive to just read the latest AI research papers. So became a big AI nerd, and then realized very quickly that we are looking at a potentially transformative moment in human history, where this is a technology that will radically accelerate some of the progress we have made as a species. But then we need to really make sure that the benefits of AI reach everyone and that the harms of AI are mitigated, especially for the communities that are under resourced. And I think that's how we started doing our work. That's how the interest in AI started. I joined Microsoft Research as a researcher in 2017. And there we stumbled upon the large amounts of data sets that AI models need to be trained. So for an AI to understand, say, a new language, it needs to learn and be fed tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of hours of data in that language. And companies were paying a lot of money for this work. And we started thinking of, hey, can I bring this work that AI really needs to the poorest people in India? And in that process, build a pathway out of poverty for them, give them money so they can be moved out of poverty. And that was a topic that was just fascinating to me as an idea. We spent 4 or 5 years doing research on this, seeing if the AI improves in its accuracy, seeing if workers are happy doing this work. And once we felt that that match existed, we decided to create a tech nonprofit startup that does these things.
Great. Um, well, for our visitors, could you describe the different kinds of human labor that go into making a chatbot or a large language model?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think AI is truly, like represented by the best of us. So it learns what we feed it, right? So let's say I want to build an AI in a language that's not English, right? Even in English, I need lots of data, but especially in non-English languages, there is not enough data available. So we actively go ahead to communities and get data from them. This is not personal data. This is training data. So this is data where they would let me give you an example. So, say a tech company wants to build an AI technology in Marathi, which is one of the 19,000 different languages spoken in India. We would take like this big company's demand of say 100,000 hours of data and we would break it into micro tasks. So our workers in rural India will just sit at their homes on their phones and they will record sentences in their mother tongue, and together that would lead to this 100,000 hours of data set that would teach the computer how to speak and understand this new language. right? So there's a lot of human labor involved. What we believe very strongly is the people who do this work should be ethically, like they should receive ethical wages for their work. They should get paid at least a living wage. At Karya, we pay our workers nearly 20 times the minimum wage, which is amazing that we that we do that. But that's just the start, right? We have to do a lot more. So we invest in their welfare. We make sure that we don't do any tasks that hurt their mental well-being, and we want to make sure that they receive ownership of their data. So wherever possible, we give them in principle ownership of their data, which means that they get data royalties every single time their data set gets resold. And that makes sure that we are treating the human beings who build the AI with the same respect that we hope people treat us with, right? And I think fundamentally AI represents this huge opportunity for us to bring more opportunities to people, right? To bring more resources to people, right? We need to understand that talent is universal, but opportunity is not, right? And AI represents this new ability we have to bring that opportunity to people who have been systematically kept away from it. And Karya is just one of many organizations trying to use AI for good, trying to use AI for creating systemic social change.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, well, this next question kind of touched on the example that you just gave, which is my question is that chatbots and language models made by the larger technology companies have focused to the English and Chinese languages primarily. And I want to ask you, why is that? And what kind of implications does that focus have?
Yeah. So I thankfully that's changing, right? And that's changing fast. I think that it is so important that people have access to the world's best information in their languages. That is critical, right? It is absurd to me that in 2024, information asymmetry is still a problem. That just because I speak English, I know more than someone who doesn't speak English because there's not enough content available in that language. There's not enough books available in that language. Information asymmetry is the number one problem that AI can tackle, right? So by building chatbots in languages across the world, in every single major and minor language, we must be able to tackle information symmetry and bring all of these amazing, like curriculums and sources of information to people in their languages, right? I think it's critical. And our work shows that. Our work shows that people find a deep resonance in teaching the computers how to speak their language, which is how we describe the task to them. But basically, in building AI data sets in their languages, people find a deep cultural resonance doing that. And that also leads to technologies that then end up serving other people who speak that language, right? And I think that balance of these things is very, very exciting and inspiring. And we really should push to do that. I'll give you a quick example. There's a disease called tuberculosis, which is a tropical disease. India has over 2 million cases of tuberculosis every year. And this incredible non-profit in India called Karnataka Health Promotion Trust, KHPT, reached out to us and said, hey, can we build a chatbot? So people who have this disease can just ask questions about their diagnosis and ask questions about their medicine and where they can get certain key services. Because the way this information delivery currently happened was via a book and via a call center, right? So they were like a chatbot could be so much more convenient because people can just use it anytime and just ask questions in their mother tongue, right? We ended up employing 1,000 people who have tuberculosis in these communities and asked them, what questions do you have? Imagine this app existed that could answer all your questions. What questions do you have about an app like this? And we got a list of questions from them. We got incredible doctors to answer those questions, right? And then we used an LLM and fine tuned it and basically built this chatbot that now works, right? And people can start using it and get access to the information they need on their fingertips in their mother tongue without any wait, right? So I think we sometimes take for granted how revolutionary access to the information on our tips is because we're so used to it, right?
Mm,
But it is so important that people who speak all languages have access to that. And I think that's happening. Like that's happening today with AI, with these big tech companies now investing deeply in building models in long tail Indian languages, working across the global south. And I think that's very, very exciting to see that push happen.
Wonderful. Um, I wanted to help some of our visitors who might not be familiar with India today,
Mhm,
to put a little context around some of the answers that you're giving. So I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about India. About I think it would be helpful to talk about like the size of the population, the
mhm,
diversity of languages, and also the number of Indians who live in poverty or are more in sort of the informal economy. Um,
mhm, mhm.
if you could, if you could just sort of maybe give that sort of a context for the work that you're doing, I think that would help people.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So, uh, if I don't know where to start about India, but India as a country in Asia. So India as a country in Asia, we've over 1.3 billion people. The number keeps increasing, obviously. But uh, it's a land of great opportunity. It's a land of great uh, human capital, and I think it's so important that we realize that talent is universal, but opportunity is not. So there are um, key responsibilities that we have as people to make sure that everyone gets that opportunity, and that's what Karya hopes to do in India. In a country of 1.3 billion people, India today has around 200 million people who live in poverty, and we believe very, very strongly that it is our responsibility as technologists to build technology that can dramatically accelerate social mobility, not just in India, but across the global south and across the world, actually, right? Because poverty and social lack of social mobility are systemic issues globally, right? I always believe that poverty is not it's not a natural phenomenon, it's a man-made disease, right? And it requires interventions to make sure that these things don't happen again. And I think technology represents one of those interventions, right? It is a very, very powerful tool once if used for good, right? And I think with AI, once again, we have this opportunity to give better jobs to these 200 million people. We have this opportunity to serve people that we haven't served in the past, in India, across the world, and really want to make sure that we don't repeat the mistakes of the internet with AI, right? The internet, it's now been almost 30 years since the internet was created and proselytized. And despite that, 30 years later, over 2.9 billion people in the world have no access to the internet, right? So we simply cannot afford to make that same mistake with AI. Imagine if 30 years from now, half the world, almost half the world, still had no access to AI. That would not be the scenario we want to live in, right? If AI represents transformative potential, we have to democratize access to it, and we have to mitigate the risks of it, so the people who we have served the least don't get affected by it, and it doesn't widen the gaps between the haves and the have-nots, and that's very, very important.
Fantastic. Um, let's see. Well, I think we've. I'm just looking at my question list. I think we. You've done a good job at describing how your work is kind of addressing sort of the needs the needs in India, um, and the ethical approach that you're taking toward the people who you work with. I'm interested in asking, like, how do you see um, kind of expanding your work to
Mhm.
so that um, you can take this ethical approach to this sort of AI labor, but for projects also sort of outside of India and more
Absolutely.
broadly? I'm kind of fumbling around for the question, but I think you
No,
get.
I got it. I got it.
Okay.
Absolutely. So I think at Karya we hope to um, fix AI's unjust labor market problem, and in the process of doing that, build entirely new pathways out of poverty for people. We believe very strongly that you have to pay your workers a living wage, but that's not enough, right? You can't just stop there. You have to invest in their welfare. You have to make sure that the work you give doesn't hurt their mental well-being, and you have to make a commitment to providing holistic worker-first intervention. And I think that's the endeavor that we hope to be on at Karya. And we obviously would love for this work to scale outside India, right? And I think in many ways, um, there are incredible worker collectives all over the world, in the US, across the African continent, in South America, all over the world, right? So we want to be able to, the way I would want Karya to scale is not by it becoming one big giant nonprofit, but actually by being worker led collectives, and thousands of them all over the world. Our platform is open source to anyone who agrees with our core principles of people giving workers like a living wage. And there are many companies today that are very, very interested in those principles, and thankfully so. So we'll be sharing access to platform with these people, so they don't have to do the hard work that we've had to do to build this platform where people can do the sort of tasks that big tech companies want people to do, right? Whether it is building a speech data set, or annotating an image, or teaching a self-driving car how to drive on a road, right? These are things that a platform can do quite easily. So we want to share that platform with people all over the world, collectives all over the world, non-profits all over the world, for-profit companies that want to do the right thing all over the world. And I think that that's very, very exciting, and we really look forward to creating a world where AI has led to hundreds of millions of people being put on a pathway out of poverty. And we think of that as extremely possible today. And I think in general, I would love to live in a world where AI truly has been a force of good, right? Where it has led to amazing interventions all over the world, where we have made sure that the people who build AI are diverse, are paid well for their work, they own their data wherever possible, and they have been treated with dignity. The opposite of poverty is not being rich. The opposite of poverty is dignity, is respect, right? And that's what we want to make sure that every worker who works with us or works with anyone in the world of AI, in the world of technology, should be treated with respect, with dignity, with kindness, right? And that's the key thing that I would love to see. And I would also love to see AI benefit these people. Like, they shouldn't just be limited to being the creators of AI. They also need to be people who are served by AI. So we have to build technologies to serve them, like the tuberculosis chatbot that we worked on in India. We are working on a financial literacy chatbot where people can chat about their financial habits and learn about ways they can better save money, right? So we have to make sure that people in the global south, or people from underserved communities globally, are both creators of AI, but also people who end up being benefactors and users of AI, beneficiaries of AI. So I think that balance is really important here.
Could you describe sort of for the typical person working with your platform, what is, if you could describe sort of like typically what their work looks like? They're using their phones, they're
Sure.
doing it however often they want, whatever. If you could just describe sort of like the typical experience of someone you work with.
Absolutely. 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 So in India today, we're very lucky that 80% of rural Indians have access to a smartphone, which means that people often have, most of our workers have a smartphone in a family, right? So they can just, usually we pitch Karya as a supplementary income and supplementary job. So whenever you have free time in your day, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, you can start whenever, you can stop whenever. There is no minimum amount of work you have to do to get paid. We make, of course, the guarantee to you that we'll pay you minimum this, and we want to make sure that people get paid immediately after doing this work. So we force ourselves to be as direct and clear with our workers as possible. So the way the daily workflow would look like is very, very simple. Workers would open the Karya app on their Android phones and they would get tasks. And now the tasks can be across speech, image, video, and text. So in the speech task, let's say they'll just basically, the task can be as simple as reading out sentences in their mother tongue because they're building a monologue read speech data set. So they're just literally reading out sentences in their mother tongue and they get paid 20x the Indian minimum wage for doing that. The task can become more complicated. They can become, here's an image, and now talk about this image. So I could show you an image of a chai, and you had to talk about, this reminds me of the time I cooked chai for my mother, and that was a great experience because spontaneous speech is something AI needs to learn how people talk and respond to images. It can move to images, like doing like image-based annotations for a self-driving car. It could be video-based annotation. It could be text-based annotation, like in the case of a chatbot, where I get a text and I have to annotate or look for certain things within it, so I know how to respond better to that text message. Right? Fundamentally, AI needs to be trained. It needs data to learn how to respond, to predict what to do next, and people all over the world do that work, like in every step of the way, from people who code the AI to people who train the AI to people who then write the prediction algorithms, people who test the prediction, to people who deploy the AI. They're human beings everywhere in this process, right? And that's exciting because we are building the future of work. And while it is true that AI is scary in the sense that it can lead to a lot of jobs being automated, it will also create a new set of jobs. And the question for us is, can we train people from under resourced communities to learn how to do those jobs so we make sure that they are being able to be put on this pathway of poverty using AI? And that balance is very, very important. And that's what we do. We train our workers in rural India today to do these sorts of tasks. We make sure we pay them a living wage. And I really think it's important to say we don't overpay our workers. We pay them what they deserve to get paid. That's really, really important, right? And I think it is really important that the rest of the sector pays them equally well, if not better, right? That's because the work has that value today in the market system. So that's very, very important. We want to make sure we invest in them. We're building AI technologies for them. We continue to serve them. And this is part of a larger trend to build and use AI for good. And today there are hundreds and hundreds of tech nonprofits doing that. And that's a very exciting time to live in.
Great. Um, well, if there was one thing that you would want, before I move into some more kind of general questions,
Mhm.
if there's just like one thing that you would like a visitor to understand about your work, um, what would that be?
That there is real potential to use AI for good to serve communities globally. And it is your responsibility and my responsibility as technologists with privilege, as people with privilege, as people with the ability to decide what to do with our time, which is the greatest privilege, to use AI to make sure we build a better world for everyone. At Karya, we're doing one way of doing that. We're showing one way of doing that to make sure that AI is built ethically and the fruits of the AI revolution reach people globally. But there are a million other ways of using AI for good. And my only hope would be that you take this exhibit as the first step in doing that. Because there is so many incredible ways we can use AI and technologies to serve people. And I would just love to see more of that.
Oh, that's great. Um, well, now if unless there's something else that you wanted to talk about more, okay. To just move into the sort of more general questions.
Mhm.
Um, the first one I had is, what is the kind of future that you see for chatbots and for AI in general as you look ahead?
I think AI is a transformative technology. AI is that one moment in our lifetime where everything changes. It is what the internet was for the previous generation. I'm quite confident about that. So I think we will see AI lead to, our productivity levels just skyrocketing. But what I am not confident about is if AI will serve everyone equally. What I'm not confident about is our productivity levels will increase 100x, but the people from under-resourced communities will ever get access to these services, right? So I think I'm pretty confident that AI is the next big thing. I'm not confident that that next big thing will be democratically distributed across the world, which is why we need more effort going into making sure that when we talk about ethical AI, we obviously talk about the risks about AI, but we also talk about the benefits being equally distributed and the people building the AI being fairly paid for their work.
Great. Um, well, I had then kind of two follow ups to that. The first is, what most excites you about um, the prospects for the future with artificial intelligence?
I think it's AI's ability to tackle information asymmetry that most excites me. I recently met an entrepreneur in Senegal who received $100,000 grant from a local foundation to build a chatbot that basically distributed government benefits to people. So governments all over the world provide these subsidies and welfare schemes to people, but these schemes can sometimes be really hard to distribute to know about because information is not equally distributed. So sometimes people who qualify for these schemes don't know that these schemes even exist. So this person built a local language chatbot, and over a period of a year they distributed $60 million worth of government subsidies that would have not been given to people had this chatbot not existed, because it is so easy to talk to someone in your language. Like I can just say, I'm this person living in this village, I make this much money, what government scheme do I qualify for? And the chatbot responds, here are the schemes you qualify for. You click here and I'll fill the application for you and I'll submit it on your behalf. And suddenly there's $60 million of wealth redistributions that happened because of $100,000 LLM. So I think I'm most excited by the transformative investments, the transformative return on investments that we'll get from the point of view of impact. And I think that AI is that force multiplier that will really make sure that we are able to serve a lot more people than technology has let us serve in the past. I think that really that scale of impact really excites me.
Let me ask you just a quick follow-up question with that. For solving this kind of information asymmetry issue, it really seems that, like the vision that you see, it's that people's ordinary first language and the smartphone is going to be kind of the interface and the platform
Mhm.
for doing that. Do you
Yeah,
is that am I picking
absolutely.
up on that correctly?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely. Because I think it's so empowering if information that is being kept siloed away or regarded to the legions of English speaking people is suddenly made available to people who speak any language anywhere, right? It sounds so funny to us because from the day I was born, I've had access to every information I've ever wanted because I speak English, right? I can't think of a single time in my life that I wanted to know something, but I couldn't because I didn't speak the language for knowing that, or I didn't know how to search that, right? All of my life I've had Google in my pocket and just been like, how do I do this, right? Now imagine living a life where you didn't have that, where you didn't have access to information that you need. You didn't know which career you could apply for, you didn't know how to do what you wanted to do in life, you didn't know what exams you wanted to take, you didn't know how to get from place A to place B in life, like, at all, and you rely only on stuff your parents know or your community knows. The number of times we see that in the communities we work in is really sad. Like the number of times I meet people saying, I just didn't know any better, and that's why I did this. In the field of healthcare, in the field of banking, in the field of agriculture, all across the global south, we hear stories of information asymmetry robbing people of a dignified life. What AI represents is a shot at us giving that dignity back to people by building technologies for them, building technologies with them, by employing them, by paying them what they deserve for building those technologies. We have a chance to bring dignity back to technology and use tech the way it was always meant to be used, to help people everywhere.
That's great. Um, and I guess I wanted to just ask you about, what most concerns you as you look ahead. I mean, we've talked about your fundamental concern about, um, will it kind of this will be the digital divide all over again, and
Mhm.
the harms will accrue to those least able to contend with them. Um, are there other I mean, that's a huge concern, but are there? Would you say that is your major concern for
That is
looking
is
ahead?
my is my major concern, because I also see people much smarter than me talking about the other concerns, which are also very valid concerns, right? But for me, the way I see it is, having lived this concern, like we see the concern daily in our field. Like, it is no secret that the world is a divided place. It is no secret that the gap between the have and the have-nots has increased dramatically over the last few years, right? We have to make sure that doesn't continue anymore. And the way we do that, is to make sure that technology serves everyone, is to make sure that things that are improving your life, my life, improve everyone's life, right? So, and I think AI really has the power to do that. And I see, very honestly, wide consensus across all stakeholders, whether it is tech companies or non-profits or governments or collectives, or museums, that we got to do that. And thankfully, they are doing that, right? The amount of incredible investments coming out of tech companies in the Valley today to build equitable AI is beyond incredible. We just need to keep doing it, right? The amount of work I see from nonprofits, the amount of government policy documents coming through on making sure that AI benefits everyone equally is utterly brilliant, right? So this is by no way something that nobody's working on. It is something that everyone today is working on. We just need to keep working on it and make sure we don't forget about the billions of people that we forgot about the last time.